Welcome back to the Adaptive Athlete Podcast, the place for conversations about adaptive athletes in the CrossFit space and beyond. I'm your host, Mat Hotho. On today's episode, we're flipping the script a little bit, and Sean Eberle, who's a short stature athlete in the community and a real source of joy, is going to be interviewing me, actually, about my journey, about my disability, about what got me starting this podcast, about how the CrossFit Games went just a couple of weeks ago. And we're going to wrap up season 1 with this conversation, and then you'll hear more about what's coming down the pipe. Check it out.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Good, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. First and foremost, I just want to thank you. I'm sure this might get a little awkward or different for you, but I am very excited. For those listening, when Matt and I spoke sometime back for my episode, he commented that he's behind the mic and there are aspects of his story that he would also love to share. So I am very honored that you would let me jump in and flip the script on you. And we'll see how this goes. So how's it going?
It's going good. I thought you'd be the person to flip the script too, because when we caught up on Zoom, you're the one rocking like the SM7 professional microphone too, and you have kind of a little studio in your house. So I was like, Sean's got this.
I'm gonna try. It's all it might be like a fake it till you make it type thing, but this is for work. But I appreciate that.
I love it.
So yeah, lots to catch up on. You've had a busy couple months since we spoke. But first, we rescheduled yesterday. I understand that there was some different PRs in your family. So I know you have 2 stepsons and 1 son. I hear 2 of them PR'd cross-country times.
Yes. So our oldest, he's 16, and he was having a slow start to his cross-country season and needed some motivation. And he set his own motivation where he was like, we're going to Korean hot pot if I run a sub 20, but we're not going if I don't. And so I had to coach yesterday morning at the gym. So I couldn't go to their event, but I get a text from my wife that he did like a 1905. And I was like, oh, so Korean hot pot? And it was like, yep. And then my 13-year-old stepson, Evan, he also PR'd on JV. So he runs JV, the oldest runs varsity, but they both PR'd on this track. And so we had an interview scheduled for 2, and then it was like, oh, we're actually going to Korean hot pot now.
Korean hot, yeah, absolutely. Well, congrats to them. That is incredible. Is that a 5K they run in high school?
It is. Yep.
Wow, that's impressive for anybody.
Yes.
Well, very cool. Congrats on that. Cross country, I guess, was their choice.
It was their choice. So they, the oldest ran track. He kind of started out, and he's a crazy kid. I mean, the distance he wanted to run was the 800, which if anybody runs track, the 800 is like the toughest distance to run, because you really just have to sell out for the whole distance. People might say the 400 is a little bit worse, but he always had this energy that he loved running. And so that was natural for him to go from track into cross country. And then his younger brother just kind of, it was one of those things where he followed in his footsteps, did a little bit of track, and then did cross country as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I assume they know that CrossFitters aren't runners.
Yes. Yes, and I've tried to get them into a little bit of CrossFit, and no luck yet.
Okay.
But that's okay.
We'll keep working on that.
We'll keep working on it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, loving father, also loving husband.
Yeah.
Just a random, get to know you type question. How did you meet your wife?
Oh man, Sean, this is one of the best stories. And I wish you were here to tell it with me. So actually, the last night of the games this year, so Saturday night into Sunday morning, I was having the worst time sleeping. I was having muscle spasms and just not feeling well. And we ended up being up from 1 a.m. until 3 a.m. And at one point, I just turned to her and I said, can you just tell me a story? And she started telling me the story of our first date. And It's one of the best stories because we'd known each other through some mutual friends. But then it was when I was at a really big inflection point in my life, graduating from seminary and getting ready to move, maybe stay in Atlanta or maybe move back home. I didn't know. We reconnected, and we actually reconnected over Facebook and then exchanged numbers and talked on the phone every night for 2 months.
Wow.
It was one of those, yeah. Like, and it's the thing where like, once you know you like talking to somebody, it's really cool that when you go on that actual first date and see each other, because it's just like, oh, you exist in real life, you know? And it just had all that excitement to it. So our first date was May 10th of 2014. And we've been trying to date ever since. And it's just been really great getting to know each other, getting to settle into a blended family. But that's how we met. We knew each other through some mutual friends. We keep running into each other. But then when we finally connected and got to talk for a long time, we realized, hey, this is something we want to pursue.
That's awesome. I love that. Talking on the phone, I feel like is a lost art at this point.
Yes.
So that's very cool. I know how much the kids and your wife are important to you. So just wanted to jump in with that.
Yeah.
I was gonna next kind of turn to your diagnosis.
Yeah, sure.
And just kind of the medical history and background there, with whatever you're comfortable sharing. Your diagnosis is cerebral palsy, correct? Yep. From here out, I'm just going to say CP.
Perfect.
Because as I was doing a little bit of digging, I don't think I ever realized there was an R between the B and the A. So I've been saying it all along. I thought it was cerebral. So we'll go with CP for now.
That's funny.
But I understand there are a few different types. Do you happen to have a specific type? Or I believe there's a mixed where you can kind of have symptoms of all of them.
Yeah, so I have pretty classic right-sided hemiplegic CP. So it impacts the right limbs and the right core, like all the musculature on the right side of my body, my back, leg, arm, core on my right side. And the way it presents for me is spasticity. So my muscles will get really, really tight. And they'll have a hard time stretching and flexing, and they won't grow quite normally. They'll grow really tight and like balled up. So if I were to flex, my left bicep would look pretty normal. My right bicep would look like someone shoved a tennis ball underneath my arm, right? It's just a really bally bicep muscle. And the big thing that impacts when it comes to the sport of CrossFit is power output, right? I can't generate as much power with my right side as I can with my left side. So I'm pretty imbalanced in that way. There's a lot of competitors in the CrossFit space with CP. Tom Miazga is probably the most well-known of them because he's now a 9-time seated champion. And he's in seated 2, seated with hip, but his CP impacts his legs. What's really cool about Tom is when he's not competing, he'll actually do squat sessions, but he has to like hold onto a rig and use a trainer bar. But it's really cool that he trains those muscles. In the same way, I don't skip leg day on my right side. I don't skip arm day on my right side. I train my right side as much as I can. And in workouts, I can get an exemption so that they judge the lockout on my left arm because my right arm can't lock out all the way. Gotcha. That's the biggest, probably the biggest way that adaptive CrossFit in a competitive sense is made fair for someone with CP. Like if I were to go compete at an able-bodied local comp, that's probably the only modification I would ask for. Can you please just judge my left arm on lockouts? Okay. But I can squat below parallel. I can do double unders. I can do a lot of things. It's taken a while, but I can do those things. Sure.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I love that even now you're bringing in other athletes, and Tom's a great guy for sure.
Yeah.
So you actually covered part of my next question, but what does CP present itself to you as outside of the gym? Are there things just daily that you encounter? Is it painful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things there. So I'll start back at the beginning in some ways. So growing up with CP, it was really hard in the sense that my mom got me to physical therapy. I had all that available to me, which I think helped me get a lot of motor function in my right hand and in my right foot that I've noticed that some of my fellow competitors who weren't able to get access to that kind of stuff have harder times using their hands and kind of walking. But what I did experience a lot was bullying. That was a real big part of my childhood, I would say, until I was about 15 or 16. I had an older half brother who would kind of get other kids to pick on me and team up on me. And sometimes I had older cousins who would pick on me a little bit. And so it was definitely tough growing up, because it's not that I wasn't encouraged to be athletic, but it was like every time I tried to put myself out there athletically, I was mocked by other kids, by other boys especially, right? This is not a counseling session, but that created a lot of really fun experiences that I got to work through later in life in terms of relationships with men and with sport and all that kind of stuff. And that's actually a place where adaptive CrossFit has been incredibly healing for me. To get to meet other guys who maybe didn't have a similar experience with bullying that I did, but grew up athletically and had opportunities to do this. And now to see, oh, I can do these sorts of things that these really fit other guys do. So my kind of response to that was to just be a brainiac. I just started studying whatever I could and getting all the grades and being really just kind of nerdy and staying out of sports for a while. But that kind of gets to how CP then started impacting me in my day-to-day life, because without training, it's not that the brain damage from CP gets worse, but my body, my muscles break down quicker. My right side will atrophy quicker. I was like in my late 20s, early 30s. I just married my wife and this blended family with two young boys who are like 4 and 6, and they want to go out and play football. And I'm just like, guys, I'm tired. Guys, I can't run. Guys, when I run, I trip. I would trip all the time when we play football because I just didn't have the power in my right leg to actually pick it up to do a good stride. I was tripping when I'd walk in the mall or when I'd walk at work. And, you just do the math. Yeah, you'll catch yourself on like 99.9% of falls, but it's that 0.1% that you don't catch yourself on that then all of a sudden something else happens, And I was just noticing that I was awkward and scared of falling and like waking up feeling weak. And so it was in 2016 or 2018, we hadn't learned that we were pregnant yet with Jackson, our youngest. But I was like, I got to do something about this. And I just walked into a local CrossFit gym, and I literally like walked in jeans and a t-shirt. And I said to the lady, hey, her name's Elisa. I said, Elisa, I have CP. I don't know if you've ever worked with anybody with CP, but can you help me? And she was like, yeah, but not in jeans. You got to come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so I came back the next day, and it was really cool. Like the first AMRAP she did for me, it was like exercises I'd done in PT, but set with the intensity of an AMRAP, right? So imagine doing like clamshells, good mornings, calf raises, but like you're doing it with intensity. Mm-hmm. And that was just really cool to see that start opening up this world for me.
That's awesome. That's very cool. And that definitely speaks to the functional piece of CrossFit. And
yeah.
I'm sure over everyone you've talked to through this season that's just a recurring theme. And I would agree that's such a powerful piece of it all.
Yeah. I think there are some of us who just had the opportunity to be athletic at a young age. Like our parents, like Bailey Hooper's story comes to mind. Her parents just told her like, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, just keep doing you, girl. And she was rowing and doing all this stuff. And then it was when she was rowing in college that someone said to her, hey, you could be on the Paralympic team because of this. She goes, oh, I didn't even realize I could do something like that. Wow. But for me, it was like, and I think for other people I've talked to too, there was this sense of, well, wait a second, I'm getting to this point where I got to do something. And that's where CrossFit kind of entered in. For me, it was also a conversation with the doctor that was just like, hey, you're going to be lucky if you're not in a walker by the time you're 50, right? And it was like, oh, that is not a future I want for myself. What can I do about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing. And I would assume with bullying being a part of your past, that confidence of what CrossFit enabled you to start doing, did that sort of help offset and build some confidence in that?
Yeah, I would say that the real confidence with CrossFit came. So I had a really pivotal moment in my life in about February of 2022. I was going through a lot, and I had a panic attack for the first time, and it was just like, oh, this is a thing. Like, this is real, right? And I'd always felt stressed or anxious before, and I'd used language like that. But this was the first time I'd been sitting in my office and I couldn't stop hyperventilating, right?
Wow.
And it just led me to this place of, okay, I need to start seeing a counselor. I need to start recommitting to CrossFit. I'd fallen off of CrossFit during COVID. And those two things, combined with just kind of like cutting back on drinking and, being more present with my family, just created this perfect storm where I'm doing this CrossFit stuff. Shortly after that, I found adaptive CrossFit. And at the same time, I'm working with a counselor that's really helping me understand these tapes, this negative self-talk that's running in my head that's telling me, that I can't trust men, that I can't trust myself in a competitive environment, that I don't belong there, right? Things like that just aren't true. And so we started working on mantras, and we started working on positive self-talk and tapes I could play in my head that would actually help me believe things about myself that were true.
Wow. That's really powerful, man. I love that. And I'm happy that you made it through that and are where you are today. That's really cool. Lots happened since we've chatted. Before we jump straight to Vegas, 23 and 24 wheel-odd games. You were right off the podium.
Thanks for the reminder.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
We have better news coming up later. So, but that is tough. And we talked a little bit right before we went live about that. But did your mentality change this year? Or, I know that was difficult, but was there any solace in just being now involved in wheel-odd in competition with adaptive? Is there any silver lining there?
Oh, 100%, Sean. And I'll try and keep this part a little brief because I could talk about this for a long time. So leading up to Raleigh in 23, I had been in about a year's worth of counseling at that point. And I was really starting to do the work of kind of like, okay, if I'm going to do something competitive, what does that mean? I've never been a competitive person. Raleigh was my first real competition that involved physicality. I'd done math counts and academic team. So I knew like kind of those nerves of competition. And I know the nerves of like public speaking and that kind of stuff, but these were different nerves. I didn't know how to trust my body to execute or do anything like that. And so I was actually reading this book. It's right here. It's called The Art of Mental Training. And Maddie Rogers actually mentioned it on her Instagram once. And so I picked it up because she talks a lot about therapy and mentality in her weightlifting. And it just had a couple of nuggets in there. And one of them that stuck out to me, here, I'll see if I can pull it up. I had it earmarked actually getting ready for Vegas.
Nice.
Yeah, right? I know. So the self-talk. So use all three critical elements and bring them together in order to change your state completely. The self-talk of a champion, the body language of a champion, and the breathing of a champion. And this book kind of frames it more in like a taekwondo, like we're going to do battle kind of vibe. But the self-talk of a champion, the movement of a champion, and the breathing of a champion. And so in 23, before all 12 events in 23, I had a ritual I would do where I would go stand behind the bleachers and I would just take deep breaths. And I had this mantra that I would repeat to myself. So this is my self-talk. I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm loved. That started in 23. The things that are true about that is I'm strong. I had to believe that I'm strong, right? I had to believe I'm capable, that I could do something like this that I'd never done before. And probably the toughest one is I had to believe I'm loved. And that's not because I'm not loved. I'm loved by so many people, right? We all are loved by so many people. But the hard work is believing that you're loved, right? And so that third one was you are loved. Those are my three words. I am strong, I am capable, I am loved. And that was my mantra in 23. So every time before an event, I'd go behind the bleachers, I'd hold onto the bleachers to grab myself. Like I'd hold onto a pole of the bleachers to feel grounded. And I would just close my eyes and I would say, I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm loved. I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm loved. Then I would put my headband on. I would take a few deep breaths, and then I would raise my chest up and start walking like a champion back into the corral, right? And breathing like a champion.
Yes.
And so that was kind of the first inkling of the power of mindset. And I don't mean to turn this into, anything hippy dippy. Like my body did the stuff it needed to do in 23 to get a 4th place finish. But the mindset stuff allowed me to believe that I could connect my brain with my body to believe that I could do these things, right?
Yeah.
And 23 was great. I was so close to the podium, lost it on the last day, had to do some other mental work on the last day. There's a chapter in here on the art of failing. And so I actually gave that a read before day 4 of that games. And it just reminded me that all of this is a gift. That was kind of what you tell yourself, right? It's like the training is the gift. The performance is awesome, but the reminder is you get to go back tomorrow and do more training and keep working on yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so this opportunity to compete with all these people in 23, to meet people with CP for the first time, to meet the wheelwad community for the first time, that was all a gift. And so that was the way I kind of reframed that loss in 23. And then in 24, I came back in, and I think I just had this energy of, okay, we're back again. I'm excited. It's bigger. It's different. I didn't really know what to expect. And so my mental state was in a better place. And so I just didn't quite do all those mantras and everything that year. It was also a different year. I mean, 2024 was weird in the sense that it was a bunch of short workouts with the exception of day 1. And there was like 7 hours in between each of them. So it really just felt like there's no point in getting super mentally wrapped around the axle, because whatever happens, you get 7 hours to go back to the Airbnb, rest, and, just kind of recharge for the next one. And it's probably going to be sub 6, like in terms of time domain. And so I really didn't do a ton of that work going into 24, but I knew going into this year that I wanted to do that work.
Nice. You touched on so much good stuff there. You said, I get to do this, 23. I know that's such a powerful, I have to, or whatever the alternative is to that. We get to do this. And that in of itself is a huge gift. I know you're a music buff, so not to sidebar us, but to your point about, body posture and just thought process, self-talk. I personally have found, like, if I throw on some hip hop or EDM, like pre-workout, and I get amped, I do far worse than when I go to worship music and actually calm myself. So I know you're a huge music guy. Do you ever put music on before these events? And if so, like, what would you go to?
That's a good question. So I wouldn't say I like listening to music before an event. I saw Josh Robinson this year with headphones on, and I was like, dude, mad props. I could not do that though. But what I do feel like I have for each year is a song that's just kind of playing in my head. And this year it was Mastermind by Taylor Swift.
Okay.
And it was just like, checkmate, I couldn't lose. Whatever I told you, none of it was accidental. And the first time that you saw me, nothing was going to stop me, and
wow.
Yeah. And it was just like, it was a song that meant a lot to my wife about 1.5 years ago when she was going through some stuff at work that she had to be a mastermind on. And she was brilliant. And she shared that with me, that song really connected her to like her power and her ability to like do things and lead. And I was listening to it again like 2 months ago, and then I was like, oh man, I think this song might have some power for me. And so I was listening to it a lot leading up to the games. And yeah, it was so true, that idea of like, checkmate, I couldn't lose. Like there's no losing. It doesn't mean that I'm like manipulating things or controlling things. It just means like this mindset of like, I've got this. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shout out TS12.
Yeah.
New album coming out. I'm not sure when, but
October 3rd, baby.
Okay, nice. Well, cool. So I promise the last thing I'm going to say before we get to the really awesome news and event Leading up to that this year, I saw that Sea Dog Summer Showdown was a first place finish.
Yes.
That was April. You turned around in May for the semis and obviously qualified for the games. What was the Sea Dog experience like? And, how much time between April? I didn't see the dates, but how much time between April and May for semis? And how was that process? How's your season been before the games this year?
Yeah, definitely. So Sea Dog was a blast. Any adaptive athlete listening to this, or able-bodied for that matter, come on down to Jupiter, Florida next year. I believe it's in May. And throw down at Sea Dog with us, man. There were 20 adaptive athletes there. It was a massive field. They do it right. They give the adaptives their own heats, but they schedule it so that there's able-bodied athletes ready to go who are like on the railings watching you compete.
Cool.
And if you're interested in like building relationships, you can walk around the campsite there and just kind of talk to able-bodied people and invite them out to your heats, and then start building this crew of able-bodied people that want to come watch adaptive athletes throw down. And so it was really cool. It's a 2-day comp, which is really fun. 2 days, 3 workouts each day. So it's volume, right? It also tests recovery, which I think is a valuable skill to test, especially in adaptive athletes, because it can be a separator. And I went down there with 2 other guys from my division, Dustin McCallum and Sam Wapshare, both guys with right hemiplegic CP as well. So we have a text thread group called 3 Men, 1 Diagnosis. And we decided that we wanted to do that. We got an Airbnb together. We knocked it out. It was great. A great competition, a great mental push too, kind of to tell myself without my coach present, without my team present, that I could still keep my nutrition under control, keep my mentality under control, and execute. And that was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that you're building and incorporating an able-bodied, army behind you. I think that's really special.
Yeah, because at like the end of Sunday, there was this couple that would come to every heat, that would just come to every heat that we were in, and just wanted to cheer us on and root for us. And yeah, it was really cool.
That's really special. Maybe I'll check out May 2026.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah. Well, we finally get to the point where you traveled and you became and well-earned and hard work. It all paid off to become the second fittest Neuro Moderate male in the world. So you traveled to Vegas shortly there, a couple weeks ago now.
Yeah.
How awesome was that?
It was amazing. So I knew going into this year, I wanted it to be my last year. I had 2 things that were carrying me into this year. One, I knew I wanted to reclaim some of the mentality work that I'd done in 23. And I knew I had a new thing that I wanted to focus on this year, which is the small phrase, I wanted to end well. I think so often in life, we don't end well with things, and it leads to regrets, resentments, all that kind of stuff. And so I was working with my counselor on thinking through what it would mean to end well this year. And we came up with 3 goals, basically. Focus on building relationships, finding centeredness before workouts. So going back to that goal from 23, and then competing hard. And that was a new one. I'd never actually explicitly said that I wanted to compete hard. And so with those 3 things, we went into Vegas, and day 1, we finished in first place. Like it was really cool programming wise to, one, have 3 tests with 5 scores on day 1. Just a really nice way to kind of pad your lead on day 1. But then to go into day 2 and know that you had to hold it was a lot of fun. Now, what happened on the Thursday night prior to the event starting kind of, I feel like, set the whole thing in motion. We went to get ramen, and they gave us fortune cookies at the end. Now, I told you my mantra: I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm loved. I wear that on my wrist now as a bracelet, by the way. Strong, capable, and loved. It was grounding me during the whole competition. Just touching it in the corral or reminding myself of it, feeling it there, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. At this ramen restaurant, I get my fortune cookie, and it says, "You are capable, competent, creative, careful. Prove it."
Wow. It's like the stars aligning.
Dude, it was insane. I start reading it to my team and they're like, no way. That is not real. That is not what's written. And they're like, it's 100% what's written. And I showed to them. They're like, oh my gosh. I slipped that in my wallet, that kind of thing. And it was just this moment of like, yeah, that's so true. And the prove it, I think connected to that desire to compete hard, right? That idea of like, all right, you got to go out there and prove it that this is real. So yeah, day 2, it was damage control, man. The rest of the weekend was all damage control, really trying to hold on to the podium. The guy coming up behind me, Nui, he's great at classic CrossFit. And so he was just winning. He literally won the next 4 workouts, and just blew up the leaderboard. And, that first workout of Saturday though, it was the first time I'd ever had to move a 50-pound dumbbell in competition. Wow. And I ended it with like 10 touch and go clean and jerks on my left arm, which is my good arm, with the dumbbell. But then when that workout ended, I moved the dumbbell forward and then just collapsed on the ground and I couldn't move. Like medical had to come out and pull me off the floor. And it was the first time I've gone so hard that I kind of experienced that thing that like Josh Robinson, Tom Szymanski will talk about called neuro crashing, which is where like it just shut off. It just like I wasn't paralyzed, but I couldn't talk to my body for about 7 to 10 minutes. So they pull me off the field. I lay down, I kind of start getting it back a little bit. But that set the tone then for the rest of the weekend. Oh, we can go that hard? Okay, let's see what that, feels like kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I think it held up pretty well. I got to give a shout out on Saturday on that workout that ended with double unders. Josh Robinson and I had connected on Wednesday at a gym. He was dropping in and I was dropping in, and he was doing an EMOM and asked me if I wanted to hop in. And so he's doing double unders. I'm doing some dubs and my dubs are tripping. And I'm like, Josh, I'm really nervous. We got this workout that's going to have big sets of dubs. And he starts coaching me on it. And then he says, I'll be there when you're doing that workout. And that workout starts and I'm on my starting mat and I look up and he's right at the end of the lane, just telling me to breathe. And every time I'd get to the rope, we would just like lock eyes and he'd be, telling me feet together, chest up and breathe. And I placed 3rd in that workout, which was again, damage control. I think if I'd not had Josh on that workout, I probably would have been in 3rd for the weekend because his encouragement kept me going to finish that workout in 3rd basically and hold off the person who was coming behind me. And then on Sunday, the last workout, it was just a sprint to basically sprint for 7 minutes. And I thought it went well, but apparently it was my worst finish of the weekend in 6th or 7th. And, but then again, Kyle, the guy who got 3rd, also had a bad workout on that one. It was just hard to see where everybody was out on the field. I should have pressed it harder. That's my one sort of shoulda of the weekend that I've got to just get out of the way. But here's what I did that I'm really proud of at the end of that workout was, actually at the beginning of that workout, I knew the announcers were going to say something like, oh man, in first place, we've got Matt, and in second place, we've got Nui, and he's within 10 points. And, they were going to like give the rundown, right, of how close it was. And I told my team, I said, man, if I hear that, like, I'm just going to start panicking. Like, I'm just not going to be focused on the workout. So the minute they start saying that, I need you guys to start shouting, I am strong, I am capable, I am loved. And the announcers go right into that, and God bless my crew, man. I'm in the corral, and I just hear Andy and Nick and Maddie just shouting at the top of their lungs, I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm loved. I'm like, get out on the floor, workout ends. I kind of collapse again and medical comes over and they're pulling me off the floor. And she's like walking me off the floor and I go, hey, can we slow down a little bit? Like, this is the last time. This is my last event. This is I'm done after this.
Yeah.
And she slows down and I just get to look around and take it all in, And those little details, right? That like the wheelwad team puts into things, right? The lanes, the tape marks on the ground, the judges kneeling there in place, ready for the next heat, the people against the railings, the sponsor banners, just everything. Getting to slow down and walk it one last time. I don't think I could have ended any better.
Yeah. Take it all in and soak up the hard work. And I love that for you, man. And I know that may be the end competing, but it's not the end of your involvement and your impact.
No.
So,
Yeah.
Couple more CrossFit and then we'll jump to a lightning round. You had, prior to Vegas, I guess I'm jumping around timeline wise, you had a really cool event to
Yeah.
help you raise support for your trip. Um, Tell me a little bit. Well, tell everyone a little bit about that and what feedback, if any, that you received on the impact of how you ran that event. Because I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, definitely. So it was done in conjunction with the House of Champions Foundation, which is run by Russell Almendinger. Lauren Farhat's a part of it. And they just put out a workout that was like, hey, do this with your gym, raise some money, and that money will go directly to you to help you with your game stuff. Basically, they just wanted to be kind of the nonprofit in the middle to get that money to you. And the workout that was really cool was I think it had 5 different stations and they simulated 5 different impairments. So you did box step ups blindfolded, you did one arm burpees. I think you did some pistol squats on one leg. You spun around on a bat and then had to do line hops to simulate neuro. And I think there was one other one. But what was really cool about how we did the event, you had to do a seated thing. You had to do something seated. And what was really cool about the event is David Kellums is a seated athlete who trains out of Orlando. And he was able to come to the event. And so it was really cool for him to kind of introduce like what he would do for these movements and that kind of thing and raise some awareness about that. And then on the whiteboard where we'd written all the movements, I'd written down the names of people I knew who were in those different categories so that people could follow them, build more of a connection with adaptive CrossFit. So yeah, one thing I noticed last year was when my community would be watching the games, the adaptive games, they were almost more impressed, not by what I was doing, but what every other division was doing, right? And they would be like, "Oh my gosh, did you see what they did in short stature? Did you see what Andrea Wilson did in seated one? That kind of thing." I'm like, "Yeah." They were so excited for these other divisions and had all these questions. And so the workout was a really cool opportunity to raise some awareness about that.
That's really cool. I love that. And to your last point there, it's always raised a really good question for me and an appreciation for neuro. Quite the opposite of, I understand their thought process. But I personally have always been in the mindset of I show up to the gym knowing what I'm sort of working and dealing with.
Yeah.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, and it may be in the neuro major, but my understanding is that there could be a day where the heat is just like incredibly, crippling to, or shows itself in different ways or different movements. And one day you could do something pretty well, and then the next it could affect you a little bit differently. So is that
Yeah, I think neuro, for me anyways, it definitely is more linked to stress. So I was going through some stuff before the games, and the gym became a place that was really stressful for me for a little while. And it was impacting, like I would start doing sets of wall balls, and after the 5th wall ball, I'd go to squat and I couldn't squat. And I got frustrated and I got sad and I got scared because, we're 8 weeks out from the games, right? 6 weeks out from the games. I'm like, I can't squat right now. I'm cooked. And eventually, once I kind of dealt with the stressor, it was remarkable how quickly the strength came back.
wow?
So I think there's something, for me anyways, I'm not speaking for every neuro athlete, although if any other neuro athletes are listening to this, is there something related to workplace stress or family stress or life stress that causes your symptoms to get worse? I know for me too, it's certain movements in parallel that can really do me in good. So like we have snatches and wall balls. Like there's something about that technicality of the snatch and then the deep squat of the wall ball that just throw me off. I'll lose connection with my whole right leg.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I that my mindset has always been to show up without sort of knowing what you're dealing with. You're almost rolling the dice.
Yeah.
I think if that helps somebody understand it a little better and have a little more appreciation, that's sort of how I've always thought about neuromuscular impairments. It's because I've seen people crash from what feels like a little bit a fairly straightforward workout or movement, but
Yeah.
So I got a couple about the workouts, and I promise we'll kind of wrap up here. That Grip Reaper, 6 pull-ups, 9 deadlifts, 3 rope climbs in 57 seconds. You smoked that.
Thank you.
And what I noticed was you weren't. I don't believe you were even top 3 coming off the deadlifts.
I wasn't.
I think I'm assuming the rope climbs were kind of what got you there. With that one though, on the live stream at the end, you gave James a hug, and you know he was visibly pretty emotional over the rope climbs and stuff. So, you know, speak to the workout if you'd like. That's an incredible performance there. But like, what on a larger stage or scale, what does that group, your division, this group of men like mean to you? Because the hug was so genuine, and it didn't even come off as like he was crying over his performance. It's just an emotional, you're drained, and maybe there was a crash. But I noticed the hug, and it just seemed like a special group of guys that you've got.
Yeah, so 5 of us in the division have competed against each other before. So there was this sort of connection of 5 of us know each other, but then there was also this vibe of, but the other 4, like, we can't wait to meet them, you know, and invite them into this brotherhood, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So James is a great dude. He has dystonia. I don't fully understand when he got his diagnosis, what happened. I'd love to talk to him about it at some point, but it's really hard for James to talk. It just impacts his speech in such a way, and I don't think he'd mind me sharing that. But we connected the first couple of days, but when his heart rate was high and he was getting excited, his speech got worse, and he admitted as much. And so we were trying to figure out the best ways to communicate. But man, in that workout, I finished 57 seconds. I thought I could be quicker, but just kind of got hung up on the rope a little bit, but had to discipline to kind of hang on to it in like a strict grip and then re-grip my feet. But I kind of thought I would knock that one out of the park pretty good. Lauren Taylor did it in 51 seconds in female moderate. And I was joking with her that I, you know, was going for that time, truly. But then, you know, you get a lot of time to sit there on the box, you know, as people are coming off. And I think I'd kind of started talking to Kyle or George or other competitors who'd finished. And I didn't even notice that James was on his last one. I thought when he did that one, that was like his first or his second. And he's just crying when he comes off of it. And I find out after the fact, he's never done a rope climb before. The way his dystonia impacts his hands, he can't actually open his hands all the way.
Wow.
So he's like knuckling that rope, right? Just grasping it between his knuckles and then grasping it between his thighs to work his way up. Like, even if you rewatch that video of him doing it, it's amazing. The grit, the determination he had. And I only saw the final one, and he'd done 2 before that. And he just got off that, and he was just, I mean, he was just bawling. He was so proud of himself. And yeah, all we wanted to do was give him a hug. We were so proud of him.
That is so cool, man. As somebody who watched from afar, I assumed it was, you know, you look at that and I was very quick to assume it was a disappointment in, you know, time or what have you. But that's the stories that I love from these weekends. So that is very cool, man. It's
awesome. All a gift.
Yeah. That is awesome. I love that. The podcast aside, how do you leave a weekend like that and keep the momentum going or bring it back to, say, your family, your box, and like your community? Because it sucks. The first week you're home from that event, you miss everybody and everything about it, except maybe the 1 minute Max Calico bike.
True.
But it's like that to me in years past that I've gone is the reminder that there is so much good and amazing people doing amazing things in this world. So like for you personally, like how have you processed that? Is there anything that you'll, like I said, bring back to your family or your box or your community that you carry forward from Wheelwad?
Yeah. So there is the loss. You're absolutely right. Like in 2024, when we all showed up in San Antonio, the first thought that ran through my head was, my people have gathered. Right? You know these people, and you know if you don't know them, you can get to know them because you all share a same commonality, right? Of overcoming, of having to adapt, that kind of thing. Right? I discovered that through the podcast. You hop on a call with someone that you've never met before, and within 5 minutes you're fast friends because we've been through this, right? So I think when I came back this year, I got back Monday night, and what was really fun is actually there were people at the gym waiting for me. And so my gym was so excited for me. And then Tuesday, I stopped into a couple of classes and just said a little something. And it was basically, y'all are the type of community that makes it possible for me to go to a competition like this and to feel supported and cared for, and like I'm part of you guys. I'm part of this community. I don't train by myself. I only train in group classes.
Okay.
So, these are my people. These are my friends, and they cheer me on whenever the open comes around, right? Whenever semis comes around, they always want to be a part of it. And so this was for them as much as it was for me, right? This is to say that Lineage CrossFit is a community that someone who is adaptive can go into, be accepted, and succeed.
I love that. And again, I said podcast aside, but through the podcast, I know you're carrying that community and just like good vibes forward. So I can't wait.
Yeah.
We'll touch on that a little bit. Couple really quick, your first season, the number of episodes that found their way to faith, to me was incredibly touching, was very special, and you could kind of hear the impact, of yourself and the stories. And you mentioned a couple of times that with your diagnosis, you had a period or periods of like resentment. What advice or what tactics or faith exercises did you rely on that kind of pulled you through those periods?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say one of the most recent periods I've had with this has been this summer. We had something we had to do as a staff at the church where we were supposed to focus on our, quote, spiritual practices and pick one of them and focus on it. For me, reading the Bible's always been an academic exercise. Not that it's not a spiritual one as well, but it always starts academically. And so that's just something that I do. And then the academic stuff starts first, and then I find a spiritual nugget underneath of it. But for me, the hardest one has always been prayer. And I couldn't figure out why until one day I was having a hard day at the gym. And my coach told me to why don't you go pray about it? And I said, why don't you shut your effing mouth? Not the most appropriate response, but that's what came out in that moment. And I realized that that wasn't about my coach. That was about what I believe should be happening in prayer and what wasn't happening. And what I mean by that is I thought in prayer I should just hear God, period. And people talk about, you hear God all the time in prayer. Not me. Never. Never. Just never do. I've worked at a church a long time. It's just not part of my prayer life. I don't hear God. And I think I was starting to resent God for that, and adding into that resentments about my disability. Just the idea that man, God, there are all these people in the world who just, get to just walk into the gym and after 6 months do handstand push-ups. walk into the gym and, snatch 135, like, all these, and those are stupid things, right? Like to bring to God. But like, they're things that I'm just fill me with these little resentments. And there are other things in life, right? Men that I see get platforms because they're able-bodied or because they are willing to, sacrifice some principles and that kind of thing and get platforms. And I think sometimes I resent God for some of the troubles that I've had in kind of getting a platform at points. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we do that. And so I was doing a lot of that, and it was really blocking me from being able to hear God or talk to God or anything like that. And so what I decided to do for the summer was just whenever I was supposed to pray like one time a day. That was kind of this challenge, right? And I was like, okay, my prayer is just going to be, hey, God. That was it. It was just going to be, hey, God, you're there. You exist. You are an entity and a being. You mean well for me. That's all I got for you today. And I think that was enough. Like, I think that's enough sometimes. I think that would be like, I think sometimes you just need to know that that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I mean, you got to start somewhere, and I'd be the first to admit that I've had seasons like that as well. And I try to remind myself that God can handle it too, right? Like there's nothing I can say that, so, thank you for sharing that. With Kevin Ogar specifically, he was speaking on how much quote unquote coincidence there was to his story, and that it just wouldn't, that amount of coincidence would be crazy to believe that there wasn't a God kind of acting through him and with him. He did talk a little bit about people who would like to pray for his healing, and the fact that he believes that his calling is through and in his wheelchair. So that got you pretty emotional. If you don't mind sharing, what was it specifically about, his story or that episode that you particularly resonated with you and
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think faith and disability really gets a lot of airtime. How often do you get to hear someone with a disability say, people have prayed for my healing, but actually what I tell them is, God put me in this wheelchair to make a difference, right? It resonated with two things that I felt coming together in that moment. One was an earlier conversation I had very early in the podcast, I think episode 12 or 13, with Megan Gleason, who's a para rock climber, born with CP. And, she was asked like, hey, would you want to have CP when you're in heaven? Or no, she said people had prayed for her healing. And she said, no, thank you. I don't want to be healed. I like this body that I have. And I think I asked her as a follow-up, well, do you want CP in heaven? And she was like, of course. I wouldn't know how to be without it. And so that was kind of running through my head when Kevin was talking about that. And then my ongoing conversations with Josh Robinson about this, how he really believes, that there's a purpose behind his MS and for him to be able to show God's glory. And I haven't gotten to that point with my CP, but I really admire Josh's fervency and the way that he talks about that. And so I think all of that was coming together in a moment of just like, it's such a privilege that to have the platform of this podcast, to be able to have a place where conversations like that can happen, where adaptive athletes can hear each other have those conversations, where maybe a parent with a kid who has autism or, has a disability can hear their child 10, 15 years down the road having these types of conversations and know that that world is possible. I think there's something about that makes me emotional, especially when I connect it back to my childhood and how I wish I would have had some people around me or resources around me who were disabled, who could guide me in a direction. And then it gets me emotional too when I think about the coincidences of the people who have poured into me enough to give me the comfort to lead a podcast like this, to be in a position where these stories are able to be told, to hear these stories, and to be grateful enough to be lucky enough to have moments where these threads all get to be connected together for myself, but also for everybody else listening. So I think that's what was running through my head in Kevin's episode. And I was just a little emotional in Kevin's episode as well, because there's times in life where you start something and you're just having hope that at some point down the road, it's going to turn out. And, that's step parenting, right? My kids were 4 and 6 when I met them. They're 14 and 16 now. And that proved true, man, 10 years, right? Of just pouring into boys. But this podcast was a little bit of that, right? I started this in late January, and Jocelyn Casker and Alina Villamore and Emily Sailors and Emily Avery's were some of the early people who just were like, yeah, I'll hop on here and talk to you. Lloyd Burns, I'll hop on here and talk to you about this. Sam Wobshare, And we didn't know what it was going to be. I just went and listened to Jocelyn's episode the other day, and it just started with like, yeah, I don't know what this thing's going to turn into, but I'm a guy with CP who just wants to interview other adaptive athletes,
Yeah.
And then to just leading up to the games, have it open up where, Lisa's on, Kevin's on, Shannon's on. And so I was just emotional from the fact that like, man, I believed in something, and good things happen when you just kind of lean into it. Right.
Yeah.
That's true in fitness. That's true in all kinds of things that we do. But then to get to the games, and I asked a question in one of the athlete briefings, someone turned to me and goes, hey, you're the podcast guy.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
She like heard my voice and was like, you're that guy. And I'm like, yeah, I am, and it was just, there were so many people who were so excited about the podcast, about wanting to be on next season, about, wanting to have a space where the community connects outside of these 3 magical days in Vegas. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's just such a blessing to be able to get to do that kind of stuff. I realize it's a long-winded way to get to why I got emotional during Kevin's interview, but that's a big part of it.
I love that. That's and you've given a wonderful platform to a lot of people that feel comfortable sharing. You make it very easy to do so. So I do have a lightning round.
Let's go. I'm excited.
First up, if you could have coffee with anybody living, past or present, who would it be and what would you talk about? Oh man, that's a really good one. I'm trying to think about what weird subculture of my life I'd want to dive into. Right? Yeah.
Like the first name that popped in my head was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dude was like 32, I think, when he was executed in a concentration camp, and had written like a full bookshelf worth of literature. He gets put in a concentration camp and continues writing whilst in the concentration camp because he has so much scripture just memorized. Wow. And that's just such a, like, spiritual or not, it's just such an interesting mindset idea to be shaped in such a way where you really read things such that you memorized them, right? So I think Dietrich Bonhoeffer would be someone I'd love to get coffee with. Wow, very cool. I'm gonna have to look more into him. If Mat Hotho's life, I know you like music, but if Mat Hotho's life was either a movie, TV show, book, or song, yeah, who would the main actor, author, or artist be? So people told me when I was younger that I looked like a young Val Kilmer. So okay, rest in peace, Val. But we can go with Val Kilmer for this one. Would you rather a long workout of all one movement, i.e. rowing, or I think 2 years ago was the 7-minute clean and jerk? Yep. Or unknown movements, rep scheme, and time domain, like 2020. Oh, like chaos? Yeah. That's tough. I think I'd go with the post Vegas. I think I'd go with the long time domain. I think I settle in well. I've got long levers, so usually that works for that kind of stuff. Sometimes with chaos stuff, I think my brain does too many calculations, and I forget to breathe, and I forget to like actually do the work. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm they've already used the number 30, so they can't use the number 30 again. But if they use the number 30 a second time, that means everything's going to be 30. So if I hear 30 again, we're going to be, what rep are we on? Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how, I mean, I think that's how my mind operates most of the time, anyways. But I think back then, even when we did that format, they didn't even keep it consistent across the divisions.
Okay.
Every
Oh,
division was a
wow.
different rep scheme because they knew people were going to walk out the door and share.
And tell the other division. That's funny.
Yeah. So, do you, what would your top 1 to 2 bucket list items be?
Galapagos. I'd love to go see the Galapagos.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd actually love going to see it. Like, I think it's a bit romanticized, but I think I would love going to see it.
Last lightning round, and this one's a little bit deeper, but what is a situation where you quote unquote failed, but you're most proud of the response that you had to the situation?
I'm trying to think of if there's anything outside of CrossFit. No, yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with the 23 games. So when I lost that podium and I knew it, yeah, I just went outside and I just had a good cry. And like, I remember all I wanted to do was listen to sad songs. I wanted to call my wife and cry some more. And I think it could have been a moment where I really saw this whole CrossFit thing, especially competitive CrossFit, as just another check in the column of things don't work out for Mat Hotho. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we've got a long list of those things. Things don't work out for Sean. Things don't work out for so-and-so, right?
Yeah.
And I think the 23 games could have been another big check mark in that box. And for whatever reason, maybe because my wife didn't pick up when I called her because she didn't recognize the number because I was using a friend's phone, maybe because the friend's phone locked and I couldn't put on the next Noah Khan song that was going to make me cry even harder, I had to buck up. I had to say, why are you crying? You've got so many people here who love you, who care about you, who want to see you succeed. This is just the beginning. This is just a gift. And that's when I kind of got that idea kind of locked in my head that like all of this is a gift. And really that for me hasn't moved into other parts of my life, but it's definitely moved in, it definitely pervades through the competitive CrossFit stuff. Because I mean, just the fact that we adaptives have a space to compete, that people like Lisa, Leslie, Shannon, Kevin, Steve, Dave, Carl, so on, more, you know, just give of their time to give us a space to do this. They're giving us all a gift. All of this is a gift. And I think that moment in 23, I could have given up. I could have just said, oh yeah, that's right. Things never are going to work out for you. And instead, I kind of leaned into it. And I was like, okay, we know what we need to work on. And this is a gift. I get to work on this. I get to work on this. I got the gift of the mental fortitude that came with developing a mantra, that came with getting to meet other people who have CP, that came with getting to meet the adaptive community. It just changed everything.
Yeah. I love that. And I think far too often adaptives are the leaderboard will define their sense of worth and value. And
Yeah.
I think after everything everyone's been through and overcome, I think that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing that. So finally,
Yeah.
thanks for hanging in there. I've loved this. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to bring it full circle with the podcast.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I had this written before, we talked a little bit ago, but I want to thank you on behalf of the community. Everybody, the episodes have been fantastic, and it's so apparent that people appreciate the platform that you've given to them and myself to share their stories. It's such a powerful thing. When you were speaking to John Prescott, you just mentioned that like you felt these stories needed told.
Yeah.
So can you remind us like why you felt that way and like where this came from?
Yeah. So two big moments that stand out for me in that. The first was the 23 games. there were two moments at the 23 games and then one at the 24 games. So the 23 games, I meet Jocelyn Casker for the first time. And I didn't know what the right thing was to say. So I go, hey, what's wrong with you?
Shout out Roderick.
Yeah. And she shows me her hands and she goes, I don't have bones in my fingers. And my next response is, can I touch them? And she goes, yeah, of course. And it was that moment where I realized that I was entering a space as a member of that community, but without the right language. And Jocelyn had the grace, the trust to allow me into that space that made me realize that, okay, there are stories here and these athletes are open to telling their stories, just like I would be open to telling mine. And there is a right way to do it. But one way that you can moderate that is by being an adaptive athlete yourself. And so I was like, let me see if I could, that's a story worth telling, right? And again, because there's things that you don't know. You just, you don't know until you meet adaptive athletes, what their stories are. And then again, at the 23 games, we sat down to do puppy yoga, and Emily Saylor sits down next to me and just grabs her prosthetic leg and rotates it 360 at the knee. And I audibly went, what the heck is that? And and then she's like, oh, this? And she just shows me all the different positions she can put that knee into, right? And that was my first time ever being that close to a prosthetic. And so, but what I took away from both of those is the adaptive community is so open to telling their stories, to educating, right? To having conversations. And then in 24, we showed up at a gym to work out, my coach and I, and he told me I couldn't work out, so I was just sitting on a C2 bike, and Emily Carnes sits down right next to me, and an hour later, we've basically done what is essentially the first podcast episode, right? And in that moment, I just go, oh, wow, yeah, okay, this content is out there, right? And I knew then that at some point I want to start a podcast. And I mentioned it to Lisa a little bit, but I'm always one that I want to make sure that I have everything in place before I start. And it was just taking me a while. So I got 6 episodes in the can by about February of 25. And then that's when I launched.
That's so awesome, man. You made this happen. Yeah. I'm just very glad to be a small part of it, but you built a really cool thing. Have you found any similarities or glaring differences in the conversations you've had this season with folks with congenital diagnoses or injuries or impairments that may have happened later in life?
Yeah, definitely. I think the mindsets are a little different in some ways. And by that, I mean, I shared my mindset at the beginning of this conversation, right? Growing up around a lot of bullying and just kind of finding my space by being a brainiac and not having physical competition until I got into CrossFit. And then you meet someone like Bailey Hooper, who, has been athletic her whole life, other congenital athletes who have been athletic their whole life. But then you also meet people like, obviously, Kevin, who were athletic. Something happened and they had to change Kevin's kind of an outlier, but he knew there was a purpose behind it. But someone like Haley Kuhn, who had an accident at a young age, was in a wheelchair for a long time, and then had just something that made her go, wait, I've got to take care of my body more. And that one I almost connected to more because it was very similar to what I had as someone who was congenital. I've had this my whole life, but there was that moment of wait, this is now my body and I control, what my outcomes are. And I think there's resonances there, whether you're whether a congenital disability or one that, happened to you later in life, is at some point you kind of decide, wait, I can be in control here. I think that was a through line.
Yeah, I would agree. I love that. And you touched on it earlier, but I'm sure you personally have learned a ton by telling these stories, and I envy that for sure.
I have learned a lot. I think I have a much, my empathy is just so big right now. I'm just wow, even when I was at the games with people I didn't know, I was oh man, I kind of want to know your story. I just think there's so much there that I think we would all be better for knowing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, last but not least, can you tell us what's next?
Yeah, of course. So we're going to take the month of October off. Your boy needs a bit of a rest. But also, I think the biggest thing, going back to the value of these stories, is I never wanted your stories, you all listening, you adaptive athletes in this space, to feel like your stories were just something to fill a slot in a schedule, right? I wanted them all to have a purpose. And I felt like continuing after the games were done would have felt like just kind of churning the wheel a little bit. And so I wanted to take an intentional break. This is also not the Adaptive CrossFit Athlete podcast. This is the Adaptive Athlete podcast. And so in November, I want to do a mini series on CrossFit athletes that have begun exploring things outside of adaptive CrossFit. Adaptive athletes that are exploring things outside of adaptive CrossFit. So I spoke to Andrea Wilson at the games. We're going to try and get her on. She's actually, right now as we're recording this, competing in Seoul, Korea in para rock climbing. She has a real good chance to make the LA 28 team, which is crazy.
So cool.
Mike Egan, who was at the games, is going to be sending out details pretty soon about his world record attempt at the most distance wheeled in a chair. Lechin Duplessis, who is a Neuro Moderate athlete with dystonia, is Ironman training right now in South Africa.
Wow.
And then this one isn't, well, I've got a fourth one that I haven't quite dialed in yet, so I'm not going to mention it yet. But I'm just trying to bring on athletes who can expand the horizons for us of what's possible beyond just competitive CrossFit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I really enjoyed this, man. I really have. Again, I'm honored that you would let me do this and share this with you. Are there any questions that I didn't ask or anything that you feel important to share?
There's just one more thing I want to throw out, and that's that we're going to be coming back with season 2 of the podcast. Late January, early February, I'm going to try and kind of tie it into the start of the open push. So once WheelWOD starts pushing out stuff about the open, I'm going to start dropping some stories. So I've got a list of about 10 people right now who have expressed interest in season 2. I've got a lot of DMs to go through from the games that I'm going to go through and add those people also to the list for season 2. Maybe some repeat guests. I think I would love to get on a couple of the people who are on in that early, top 10 of episodes when I was still pretty new to this, to maybe retell their stories with at least a better microphone on my end. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing season 2 and running that through the game season in 2026 and seeing where this thing goes.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you again for letting me do this. Thank you for sharing your story. Can't wait to see what's next for you for the podcast. Congratulations, second fittest Neuro Moderate male on planet Earth. And with that, I will just remind you, Matt, that you are strong, you're capable, and you are loved. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. That means a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.